Hey everyone, it's Coach Collins here, Bradley from Elevates Coaching, and I'm super excited to drop the 7th video of my Clarity for Entrepreneurs series. And this is kind of a fun one for me because I get to go back in my brains and retell a little bit about a client's story. This is somebody that I've worked with in the past, and on the fly, I'm going to be changing their name in the document that I have up here, where I've got kind of my talking points and things that I really wanted to share with you guys. And I will call them Steve for the sake of going forward. But a couple months ago, Steve was somebody that was drowning in decision fatigue, very reactive leadership. And I want to share a little bit about what shifted, some of the realizations that they had and what they were going through. So again, not going to use the real name. This is all about Steve. But I want to say it was back in November. Steve is the kind of entrepreneur that looked really successful from the outside. They had a reasonable business. They're really respected in their industry. But internally, they were drowning. They were burning out. And today I'm going to walk you through Steve's story, what they were struggling with, some of the things that we got to work on together, and what shifted as a result. So this is the before. This is some of the things that Steve was dealing with. They had decision fatigue. So they were spending hours and hours on decisions that should have taken minutes. Should they have certain people fill in certain areas? Should they change some of the responsibilities, take certain meetings? How are they going to balance their day? And what opportunities should they really be pursuing? Every decision that they had felt kind of monumental, and there were so many of them that many got put onto the back burner. Steve had many fragmented days. So their calendar was absolutely packed. And there was very few things that were actually meaningful getting done. There was a lot of context switching, and a lot of things that they did in their day-to-day was just almost time filler. It wasn't necessarily progressing them forward to their ultimate goals. And they tended to be a little bit more reactive in their life than they wanted to be. They were responding to whatever was the loudest, and very rarely was it ever something that was the most important. The strategic work that they were trying to do, it continued to get postponed. And it also affected their relationships. So there was tension with some of the other founders over misaligned expectations. There was frustration with the rest of the team. They feel like they had to micromanage or was responsible for absolutely everything. And they felt like they were carrying this huge invisible weight all the time. They were exhausted, but couldn't really point to what they actually accomplished in the day. So we started to do the work. These are some of the things that we focused on. Initially, we started with awareness. This is bringing validity to a lot of the experiences that they were having that they couldn't put a name to or didn't want to initially. So we started by auditing where Steve's energy was really going. And it turned out that over 60%, I would say, of their time was spent on things that didn't align with their stated priorities. So we started to identify more of the values and things that mattered the most to them. And we realized that many of these were being violated daily. We started to name the pattern, and Steve was operating on inherited expectations, what they thought they should do, rather than intentional choices that they had made. So we continued to work through the awareness phase and built up an understanding of what wasn't working for them and what was the most important to them. We got into questions that they had been putting off and just kind of living rather than shining a light on it and understanding why they were behaving the way that they were behaving and why they felt the way that they were feeling. So the next phase, we moved into intention. And this is where we reconnected Steve to their original why they started the business that they're in, what they were trying to create, and what kind of leader and person they wanted to be. We defined what success should feel like, not just look like. And for Steve, that meant having more uninterrupted time to think, clear communication with the other co-founders, and space to be present with the people that mattered in their life and the activities that they wanted to do. So we clarified their top 3 priorities and ruthlessly eliminated everything else. And then we moved into the phase of consistency. What we had built was new decision-making practices. Steve now filters every opportunity through one question. Does it move them towards what matters to them or away from it? We established more boundaries with their time and energy and scripted how to communicate those boundaries to the rest of their team members, to their family, to their friends. We set up weekly check-ins to ensure Steve was following through and staying aligned with everything that we had set out to do initially. We were able to hold them accountable. And so what are some of the things that happened after? What shifted? So Steve had clearer decisions. They went from hours of deliberation on stuff that didn't freaking matter to being much more confident in the decisions and the minutes that they spent. They stopped second guessing themselves and moved forward into a new place that was much better for them, that provided a lot more clarity, and they were able to provide a lot more value to their clients. Steve is able to protect his energy better. So by setting boundaries and eliminating a lot of the misaligned commitments that they had previously, Steve had reclaimed at least 10 hours a week for strategic thinking and their own personal time, doing the things that helped exercise their brain and their body. We became a little bit more aligned in our leadership. So Steve's communication with the co-founders improved dramatically. Expectations became clear, and all of the tensions were able to be dissolved. And overall, we've got better team dynamics now, from what I'm hearing, because Steve was clearer internally on what they wanted. They were able to communicate more effectively externally. Everyone felt a lot more aligned and empowered after our work. And they built up more sustainable momentum. So I haven't talked to or worked with Steve in a little while, but from what I've heard, it's been the first time in years, many, many years, that they feel like they're doing the right thing for them instead of being dragged along behind others' expectations. Now, some of the things that I'm super happy for Steve is they've been able to double their revenue in that time. They've been able to have a more peaceful schedule, and they deliver exponentially more value to their team and their clients than Steve has ever had the opportunity to do before. So the real win isn't just what Steve is doing differently. It's how they feel internally. They went from this place of overwhelm to a little bit more grounded. They went from reactive all the time to being intentional, and they went from being fragmented all over the place to something coherent. And I remember when they had said that this was an entirely new experience for them. And it's a little bit scary at first. It is when you first experience it. And then when you build up the reference experiences that this is okay, this is actually safe, this is the new place you get to operate from, it became really, really exciting. I think that's about all I really, really wanted to share about the experience with Steve. Yeah, they didn't realize how much energy they were wasting in all the mental noise and other people's expectations. So now that it's quiet, they can think, they can lead, and they're more of that person who they've wanted to be for so long and knew that they were. So if Steve's story resonates with you, if this is something that you want to go through and move from that place of chaos and burnout to clarity, let's talk. Again, feel free to reach out to me directly or through my website, coachcollins.me, and I'd be happy to show you how that you can work some of these clarity practices into your life and move you from a state of chaos into clarity. And I hope you've enjoyed this Clarity for Entrepreneurs mini-series. I think I've always found a lot of value in people sharing their stories and their methods to go from places of chaos into the promised land for them. So again, if this is something that you enjoyed and you want to be a part of, let me know. Please smash the like button. Feel free to comment, engage. I read all of this stuff personally. So it's always very meaningful to me when you're able to show appreciation through a like or a comment or something of that nature. So as always, I appreciate you. Love you lots. I wish you a very clear path ahead, and we'll catch you in the next series.